Well, hello, my friend. Welcome back to another episode of the Chaos to Peace podcast, where I talk about how clutter is so much more than you think. Thank you so much for allowing me back into your ears. Well, hello, my friend. I am Conny, Graf, your host. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, I welcome Andrea Caprio as a guest. Andrea is an expert in emotional eating and a Master Transformational Nutrition Coach. She has developed what she calls the food freedom formula to help busy people that struggle with cravings and emotional eating to lose weight without dramatic changes to their diet or workout. This is just such an important conversation right now because you might be thinking, I will not even try to eat healthier now with the holidays coming up. But Andrea and I both make the case why now is the perfect time to deal with bad eating habits, and we share tips on how to start. What I love about this conversation is that Andrea's approach is very similar to mine. We both are big advocates of small, consistent steps that build big momentum. Listen to what Andrea says when I ask her if she ever gets pushback from people that tiny tweaks to our habits won't make a difference. I hear that a lot. Oh, Connie, just small steps will not help with my mess I have. And Andrea gets the same pushback. She hears a lot, oh no, Andrea, just a few tweaks will not help me have healthier eating habits. So I really love Andrea's answer to that. You better make sure you hear that. We also talk about, first and foremost, what emotional eating is and why we do it, how we can become more aware of that we're doing it, and how to start changing that habit, how to start a new healthy eating habit in general, and how to do that during the holidays, and why being strict with yourself doesn't really work and what to do instead. And again, we also talk about why now is really the perfect time to work on your healthy eating and on your habits, even with the holiday season coming up. Also, just in case you're wondering, I said before on this podcast, and I mention it again in this conversation, having clutter in our life and unhealthy eating habits often go hand in hand. They are connected because clutter creates stress. And if we have stress in our life and we have a chaos in our home, then eating healthy is even harder than if everything is organized. So most people who are having a lot of clutter and a chaotic environment also are having unhealthy eating habits. And this is where you can actually start changing this situation with a few minutes a day and with a few small habits. So listen in and then let's declutter your eating. Without further ado, let's jump into this conversation with Andrea Caprio. Welcome, Andrea. I'm so excited to have you as a guest on my podcast. How are you today?
I am great, Connie, and I'm excited too. I've been looking forward to that, especially at the moment. I think, the chaos to peace of your podcast is such a prevalent theme right now.
Yeah,
So I'm super
yeah.
excited sharing some things.
Yeah, I'm excited too because also it's like what we're going to talk about is very much top of mind, right? Coming towards the holidays, people are eating a lot, buying a lot. So we're going to have a good conversation. So my audience is international. So usually my very first question is always like, where are you located? And also tell us one thing about you that has nothing to do with what we're talking about afterwards.
Okay, great question. So it's complicated where I'm from or where I'm located, rather. No, I'm located is easy. I'm in Italy at the moment in San Remo, directly by the beach, near the French border. But I've been traveling a lot. As you see, I have a thick German accent, I always say. So I'm from Munich in Germany, actually. And I lived in Kenya, I lived in South Africa, I lived in Miami, in Portugal, and several places in Italy. And now I'm Italy here in San Remo, and I'm enjoying it really. It's like almost perfect place. So yeah, lots of international things. And what has nothing to do with what I do? It has nothing something to do, and it has obviously always something to do. I love traveling, as you obviously hear. I mean, otherwise I would not move around so much. So traveling is definitely discovering new cultures or different cultures, learning about people, and just experiencing amazing places. So that's one thing. The other thing, normally, this is a little bit different. Maybe I was a ski instructor, I was a water ski instructor, I scuba dive. So kind of a lot of different things I love. And I have a dog and two cats.
Oh, we have that in common. I have 2 dogs, 2 cats. Yeah. I grew up in Switzerland. Some people hear my Swiss accent, but I never got into skiing that much. Like everybody always thinks, like, I don't know how about you, but when I talk with people from North America, they always think like just because I grew up in Switzerland, I must be a good skier, and we always have only snow and we only have mountains. I don't know about, like, Munich is not that far from Switzerland, so might be similar.
Yeah, of course. I mean, look, a lot of people in Munich, I think, ski, but obviously not everybody. And I mean, we are not far from the mountains. We have the mountains in Germany, but Austria is usually the place where most people would
Yeah.
go. And we had a house actually in Austria. So
Yeah.
the weekends were spent there. I was 1.5 years and I barely walked and I was skiing already. I mean, probably not very well, but still.
So cute, so cute. Yeah, but we're not going to talk about skiing today, although
Nope.
that would be entertaining too. But so you're here now to talk to us a little bit about emotional eating. And I had before guests on because I made early on the connection about clutter and eating. There's many, like one is also, like I always say, like if you have a chaotic house and your life is chaotic and stressful, you're most likely not going to eat really healthy and intentional. It's just that comes with it. But I also feel like now going, like I said in the intro a little bit already, going towards the holidays, it is a stressful time, right? Even more stressful than the rest of the times are right now.
Yeah.
And so, how did you get into the emotional eating part? Like, how did you find your niche about emotional eating?
I always believe it found me somehow. So, like many coaches and people in kind of our space, we got into it through our own story, right? So I'm no exception to the rule. That I was many years, actually over a decade ago now. I realized I was not eating that healthy, and actually, what I realized is I was eating more and more sugar, right? So there was
Mhm.
sugar in the cereals in the morning, in the coffee, then there was maybe a little cake, then there was a tea with sugar, etc., right? Maybe a soda. And it added up. And I don't know how, probably seen something, add up all your sugar. And I realized, it was like a glass of sugar every day or whatever kind of thing. I don't know if it was a glass, maybe half a glass, but, it was definitely a lot. And I had at the time also realized that I have a few health issues. So I had weekly migraines, I had all the time bloating, I had several times fibroids removed, so hormonal issues. I had, I was always tired, bad skin, uh, a few kilos too many. We speak in kilos, so more
Mhm.
pounds than kilos, obviously too many, and all these kind of things that added up. And I came across a really healthy way. It was a detox that I did for a few weeks or so, and suddenly everything improved. Obviously, some things faster, some others later on, but it was quite quick. Like within a week's time, I had more energy, my skin improved, my digestive system improved, and then later on, the migraines diminished. I had never to remove fibroids anymore again. I went through menopause with almost no issues, whereas all my friends have issues. I have now maybe 3 times a year a migraine or something like that, not anymore weekly. So kind of, I realized, and obviously my weight also dropped. And when I realized how much the food had to do with my feeling, how, my health issues and all that, it kind of clicked. And as it is, I must have Googled something, and then I get a Facebook ad of a nutrition school, right?
Mhm.
Obviously, I didn't realize that at the time. Now, I know a
Yeah,
lot
I
about
think no,
market.
now we know we can't say anything or
Exactly,
Google
right?
anything. And
So anyway, I did my research and I actually didn't sign up for that nutrition school, but for one that, was really yeah, it fitted better what I wanted to do. And basically, it's a very holistic approach I learned. So spiritual health, emotional health, and the science of nutrition. And then I did also my master program after with the same school. It's really amazing. And I specialized in digestive health, in weight loss, in emotional health, emotional eating, hormonal health, autoimmune, and diabetes, and a couple of other things. So I went very deep into that, and I started opening my practice. And that at that time I was in Miami, and I was, helping people there overcome their issues. And then, more and more I went actually online because I was traveling all the time. So, and that's how I
Mhm.
started. And I've since that, I mean, that's over 9 years now. I've helped hundreds and hundreds of people lose weight, keep it off. And basically, they achieve that and improve, obviously, their health as well through emotional eating, or helping them with emotional eating. Because what I realized and how that niche kind of found me is that almost everybody who came, to ask for help was struggling to lose weight and keep it off, or they were on the yo-yo dieting. And
Mm,
most people, they knew what they should be eating.
yeah,
But, it's so easy. You go to the doctor and the doctor says, hey, you have health issues or you need to lose weight. Just eat healthy.
yeah.
First of all, what does that mean, right?
Mhm.
And I want to eat healthy, but it's difficult because, like we just said earlier, we have busy season coming up. We have the stress. Maybe, I don't know, somebody's ill in our family or
Yeah.
dies, or, we have stress in our job, maybe with our partner or whatever it is. I mean, stress is just, I mean, it's increasing all the time, unfortunately. And
Mm,
so and obviously we go a bit deeper into that, but when you then don't know how to deal with it, right,
yeah,
then you will try to solve whatever stress comes into your life, right, with something, with a escape.
yeah,
And that's the emotional eating. Some people will drink, some will do drugs, or some will go, I don't know, gambling or whatever it is, right? We all have different coping mechanisms. But the eating part is what I think is the biggest issue here, actually, or most people struggle with, because food is everywhere, right? And
yeah,
it's legal, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, and we have to eat. So you cannot just say, oh, don't eat, right?
Hmm.
With smoking or drugs, you say, don't do them. You don't need them, but we still need food no matter what, right?
Yeah,
And obviously, we have to go shopping. So we go in the shopping supermarket or whatever, and we want maybe to buy healthy food, but then there's all the other food around, right? And
yeah, yeah. And it's so hard also that it really doesn't make it easy, because you think you might eat healthy, but if you don't start reading the labels, and if you're not starting to understand what it says on the labels, because I heard once, and I might quote that wrong, but I think there's 50 or even 100 different names for sugar too. So even if you read the label, you might not necessarily understand that you're actually consuming sugar. It needs so much extra effort to understand what really healthy is. And when you're already stressed, and when you may, like you said, you may have a family member sick or whatever, you don't have maybe the emotional and mental bandwidth to figure this all out. So,
true.
and so what I also feel is we don't learn. Like, I don't know how you grew up in Munich, but I didn't grow up learning how I need to deal or cope with emotions in a healthy way, right? So that's also, or then you have grandma who gives you, oh, here, have a chocolate, then you feel better, kind of thing. No. So what is your experience in this area,
So
like the surroundings that?
So you have a great point, Connie, here, where, the emotional eating or any, unhealthy behavior usually comes from our childhood or somewhere in the past, right? And I always say that you carry around, in the backpack, your limiting or false beliefs. And that lead often to those coping mechanisms that are today not serving you anymore. Maybe they served. So, like you say, the grandmother, right? Oh, you fell down, here's a chocolate, right? Even, I
Mm,
mean, I don't know about you, but I went to plenty of dentists when I was younger. I think they don't do it anymore today, but when I was younger, I go to the dentist and then they give you a sweetie after, right?
Yes,
I
it's
mean,
so ridiculous when
I
you
have no
think
idea if
about
they
it.
still do it, but I mean, if you look at, yes, okay, great, you feed
Here,
my
have a candy.
have a candy so you come back, right? And
Yeah,
you ruined your teeth
exactly.
anyway. But if you look at it, it was always that, yeah, here is something sweet or so. Or the example I give often of one of my clients, when she was a child, parents came home, they were tired after a long day's work, they needed a break. They put the child in front of a TV and with a box of chips or something, just to have a breather, maybe have a glass of wine or whatever, right? And the child wanted, obviously, the parents and thought, oh, the parents don't love me, right? They don't want to spend time. So the chips are the replacement for love. So
Mhm,
whenever that person is down and needs love, right, for whatever reason, emotional reasons, obviously, they will then go to whatever has helped them when they were a child.
mhm,
There's obviously worse things. People, have been affected with trauma. I had a client who, she was 31 years old. Um, she was weighing over 400 pounds. And she has been exposed to trauma when she was a child. She's been raped by her uncle and cousins numerous times when she was between her 8 and 14 years old. So she took that as an escape and to make herself ugly, right, or undesirable, and she kept
mhm,
that on into her childhood. So it's the thing is that often those things that maybe have served us, usually they actually haven't, but let's keep it like this, we keep them on into the adulthood. And that's especially then when there's a trigger, like stress or whatever,
mhm,
that then we go to those patterns again. And the thing, what I always say, what I like when I work with my clients, is we work on becoming aware of it, because that is
mhm,
literally the first step, right? So what
mhm,
I always like doing is, if you struggle, like, you know that you're eating emotionally, or let's say, if you, I mean, emotional eating, maybe just to kind of define it, is when you're eating either quantities or something that you haven't planned, right? So you have normally your breakfast, lunch, dinner, maybe you have a planned snack or so. But whenever you eat more or things that are not planned, right, or outside of those meal times or whatever planned times, then usually that would, for me, define emotional eating, right? So if you have that, you want to pay attention maybe over a couple of days, a week or so, and have a journal where you write down each time you eat. And obviously, especially those unplanned eating events, right? And then you want to become aware what happened, right? What is the trigger? And how do you feel before, after? How full, how empty, right? Or hungry, or so? Is this physical hunger, or is it actually emotional hunger? Is it maybe just that you are thirsty, right? Maybe it's just, sorry, we cannot see this with the blurring, the glass of water you needed, right? So you want to write it down, and when you do that over a few days or so, you will probably discover patterns, right? You will then see, oh, every day around 3 o'clock, I, automatically open the drawer and I hand, have some cookies, or whatever your thing is. Or every day after work, I come home, I'm really tired, I had difficult day or so, I sit in front of TV with a bag of chips, whatever, right? You will realize that. And then from there, you can actually realize the trigger. So it's the coming home and, kind of relaxing, or it's the, maybe the boss calls you at 3 o'clock and you have the meeting and the boss is not a very nice person, right? Or maybe it's a time where you're in the afternoon a little bit tired and actually your blood sugar has gone down for, physical reasons or so. So you want to kind of become aware. And then once you have the awareness, then you can actually do something about it.
mhm. Yeah, this is for sure. It's so interesting because when I went through it's almost 10 years ago now, when I went through my extended training, how to help people with clutter, which has most of the time an emotional reason below it. That was all the same thing that they said to do, right? You need to become more aware. You need to find out what triggered you. Like you said, some people eat then when they need to release some of the stress. Others, they go on their way home
from work, they walk by some store and they need to buy something, even though they really don't like it. So it's very similar. And that's the reason why I say, like, we haven't really learned how to deal with these emotions. And that's what, for some people, it's eating. For others, it might be then, like you said earlier, alcohol or drugs that just take that edge off that we kind of feel, right? Instead of doing it in a different way. But what I feel and what I often see with my clients too is, like, if life is already so stressful, it's really hard to become mindful. I don't know how you help your clients with that, because, like, they think now, oh, now I have something else on my to-do list that I have to do. And also, like, in the beginning, sometimes, and I had experienced that too, you don't even realize that you're actually doing it again until maybe later. And all of a sudden, oh, I did it again. So how do you help your clients, like, taking on this task of being more aware and writing it down when the whole life is already quite stressful to begin with?
Yeah, it's a good question. So obviously, you need to make a conscious decision of wanting to change. So a very important thing is to have a goal, right? So you need to have a clear goal. Otherwise, it's very difficult to stick to it. And I help really define the goal with my clients so they know that. And then, as I said, the awareness that I mentioned earlier and writing it down is a first step. And I think, people can keep up with this for, let's say, a week's time or so, right? It's really this, I mean, this should be something, somebody should start willingly if they want some change, because once you know, then you can work on it. And the next step would be, because most people struggle with willpower. And I always say, right, willpower is a fleeting thought, right? I always say you have a bag of willpower, you take out a few coins and it's gone. And that's exactly, when normally then the stress happens, or, we have like parties going on, like at the moment, going forward with the holiday season upon us and so on. So that's when, the whole resolutions go out of the window. And it's all about implementing healthy habits. And so, as I said, once you know your triggers, or what's actually there, what's the root cause maybe of it or so, you can actually start putting habits in place. And I'm huge about habits, because when you have a habit in place, you don't need willpower anymore. You do it. And I will ask, and I do that often, I will ask everybody here who listens to us, and you as well, Conny, of course, do you brush your teeth? No, we talked already about the dentist. We're going to stop after with the teeth. But yes, you probably say, or hopefully everybody says, yes, of course I do. And I hope you say, yes, I do it morning, evening. But the more important question is, do you think about it? And probably you don't, right? I mean, if we brush our teeth regularly, we don't think about it. We just do it, no matter if it's a late evening, no matter if there's stress or whatever, we just do it because we learned it usually during our childhood, and it's a habit. Now, how do you learn habits like brushing your teeth so you can do it no matter what? And I will give you all that right now. So take something to write because you need it, pause or whatever. But you definitely want to write this one down, because that's probably the number one tip I share with my clients, and that helps my clients really start new habits and keep them, even though it's stressful. And it helps really a lot with emotional eating. There's some other steps, but yeah. So the first thing is, once you've done your checking on the triggers, right, you wrote down what it is, so there is some event that happens that make you eat emotionally, right? So you could use that, and instead of eating emotionally, you could do another habit, so a replacement habit. Or you could say, I want to start a new habit. Let's say you want to exercise more, and you want, to start a regular workout routine. Or very often, going back to the glass of water, very often we think we are hungry, but in fact we are thirsty, we are dehydrated. So we eat emotionally, but the only thing actually what happens is that, or what happened is that we are thirsty, we are dehydrated. So you want to start a new habit or a replacement habit, you need an existing trigger. This existing trigger can be anything. So to give you an idea, let's say I want to start drinking more water. I could say each time I go to the bathroom, after I wash my hands and I turn off the tap, I will have a glass of water. Okay, so it's the bathroom, washing my hands, turning off the tap. That's the trigger. You see how precise I did that. I didn't just say, every time I go pee or whatever, right? So I made it very precise what I really did there. And then I do the new habit or the replacement habit. It could be each time I get home, and I close the door when I get home, I go immediately for a walk instead of going into the kitchen cupboard, right? Each time I make a meal, I add a vegetable. Each time, every morning when I get up and I put down my foot, I immediately put on my running shoes and I go for a little run. Next thing is really important is that you start super easy. So let's say you haven't done exercise. You don't want just to say, oh, I'm going to do a 1 hour exercise every day, right? Right? If you haven't, it's not going to happen. You're going to, first of all, be sore everywhere to start with, but you want to start with maybe just one push up or just put on your running shoes. That's all. Do that for a week. And then next week you do something, a little bit the next step. So 1 push up, 2 push ups, then 3 push ups and whatever. Always make sure you can keep that habit and then only go to the next step, right? Like this, you can, build up on your existing habit. And then the third part of this, so you have the trigger, you have the habit, and then celebrate. And that is actually something most people forget. So I want you to say, yay, or happy dance, or whatever your way of celebration is, because your brain thrives on dopamine, right? We all love dopamine. The dopamine kick we get when we scroll through our phone, when we eat unhealthy, when we party, when we are with people. It doesn't matter, right? The pizza, the pasta, whatever. All this leads to dopamine increase. And our body and our brain loves it. We usually are addicted to it almost. Now, if you celebrate, that gives you a dopamine kick. And when you do that several times, your brain eventually will realize that, oh, this new habit, let's say the glass of water, here it is. So the new habit, drinking a glass of water, is actually the thing that makes me get this dopamine kick, right? The celebration. And we crave eventually the glass of water.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I just repeat, I want you really to write this down. It's one of the best things. By the way, I have this knowledge from the book called Tiny Habits. I highly can recommend it. So you have an existing habit, a trigger basically, as the trigger. And then you have the new habit or the replacement habit, and then you have the celebration. And if you start with a small new habit or something small and you do it every day and you can build up on it, and then you can stay on track no matter of whatever stress is hitting, your life.
Yeah, I love it so much, Andrea, what you're saying, because it's literally like one of my sayings is a few minutes a day keeps the chaos away. And that's exactly how I work with my clients too when we're doing the getting organized and getting decluttered, right? We start small, but what most people do is they try to use the whole weekend and make it in one big swoop. But I always compare it to the crash diet, right? When we can keep it up for a little bit and then it all comes back in. And so I love so much the science behind it kind of is so similar, how we can deal with these unwanted things that we're doing or and actually focus on our goal better. So I really like it. And I don't know, do you get the pushback? I sometimes get the pushback, oh, Connie, just doing this little bit here, that's not going to make a difference, right? And they're forgetting about how this builds up and how you get momentum and how it's so much easier on yourself than trying to do it the hard way, like in the eating space. I think a lot of people try, oh, I'm never going to eat sugar ever again. And from today to tomorrow, probably during the holidays on top of it. And then willpower, like you said, is literally not something that can sustain that goal, or the habit doesn't happen by deciding from today to tomorrow that I'm doing it at 180-degree difference. And that's what I love so much, that you're talking about it the same way.
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, of course, I get the pushback. I mean, I work normally with people who have been, trying to lose weight or become healthy or whatever for, I mean, often they say like for their whole lives or, for many years. Most of my clients have gone through plenty of diets, right? And that's exactly the problem, right? Diets are strict. Additionally, they're usually unhealthy and so on. So a whole lot of other things. But or they try, to implement new healthy habits, and like you said, right, they try too much too soon at the same
I'm
time, and
guilty of
doesn't work.
that. I made that mistake in the
Look, I do
past
it.
too, right? Yeah.
I still do it in other areas today,
Yeah.
to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm in my work, definitely it's something, I'm trying myself. So
Yeah.
I'm very good in all my healthy habits. I'm really good. I've done that. And I don't believe, by the way, on only eating healthy either, right? I mean, it depends. Obviously, if you have a health issue, you might have to really eat only healthy.
Yeah.
But I believe in a balance. But to go back to the question here is that yes, people push back, and I let them. In the
Mhm.
end, I work with people usually a little bit in a longer term. I mean, not
Yeah.
forever, but a few weeks or a few months usually, because it takes time to implement it, right? And also, I work deeper. I work on the root causes of issues. People usually have some health issues as well. So we look deeper. And the mindset is always sort of 80% of the work in any case.
Yeah.
So we have to
Yeah.
go a little bit deeper, and that takes time. But they definitely, what I teach and what I think is so important, I think you do that as well, is yes, so okay, try it, do all. You probably will fall off the wagon. And then
Yeah.
usually people come back and say, oh my goodness. But what I so much like doing with my clients is they implement, it works, it doesn't work, doesn't really matter. But you take the data of what you've been doing, right? So you have that information now. So it works, great. Let's continue and maybe, increase a little bit more or whatever it is, right? Or add something else to it or whatever, right? It doesn't work. Okay, let's review. Why didn't it work? What is the thing? How can we address it? What's the constraint we need to solve so it can work? And what ends up happening is that you go into a cycle of repeating. So it's a consistency, implementing it consistently, right? You might fall off the wagon. That's okay, right? You already had 3 days where you did the thing, right? Okay,
Yeah.
on the fourth days, you fell off the wagon, but you have 3 days that, normally you didn't have. So let's just learn, see what we can improve, dust yourself up, get back in the saddle, and maybe next time it's going to be 4 or 5 days, right? And like this, we improve. And I always like this. We are looking for, I always say, we're looking just for improvement, not perfection. So
Yeah.
1% of improvement gives you in 72 days 100% result, right? So every day a 1% improvement will get you to your goal.
Yeah.
So if you continue doing that, you can do so much more actually, because this whole perfectionism is
Yeah.
actually the mindset issue, which very often is
Yeah.
related, obviously, to the emotional eating per se, because that's the whole thing is I'm not good enough, or those limiting beliefs, or everybody in my family is overweight, so I will be overweight my whole life. And we have the self-sabotage or procrastination coming in, which plays, by the way, a huge factor in everybody's journey. And so we're working on these things obviously simultaneously. And like this, you're getting there. So it doesn't matter if you try to do it all at one time. You will fall off the wagon, most likely. And then we work on it.
Yeah. And it's just so funny. You said earlier that a lot of our bad habits or our unhealthy eating comes from childhood, right? But the perfectionism, at least in my case, comes also from childhood. And I don't want to blame anybody. It's just how it was. But like in our household, it was said, if you do something, you do it right. So you had to I was trained kind of in brackets, right, to be perfect. And I had this problem. So if I was trying to do something and was doing it good for 4 days, and the fifth I fell off the wagon, I threw the hands in the air. Oh, I can't do it. Okay, I failed. And I had to overcome. This is the mindset that you have to overcome, that a lot of people have to overcome, that no, you didn't fail. You just tripped or you just fell off the wagon. You can just continue on. But what I would say is like, oh, now I have to start from square one again, or square zero even. Instead of, no, I'm starting. Actually, I did it already for 4 days. And now I can just continue on, like you just said. But this I think is really one of the mindsets that we have to change, that I had to overcome too, that we're not, every time we're falling off the wagon, we're thinking like, oh, we're a failure and we're not perfect and we can't do it and all is lost. Not all is lost. There was just a little hiccup, right? But that's kind of how I grew up, that when you did something wrong in school too, like we had to write beautiful in school, and then you made a little mistake, you crumble the paper and start from scratch, instead of, okay, there is a little flaw here, but I can continue on, right? Absolutely. And that is one mindset. And the other mindset I experienced myself too in the past, when I kind of wanted to lose some weight, is like, you want to have it lost by tomorrow. You don't want to wait 72 days, Andrea. Oh my God, that's a long time, right?
I don't say necessarily, that it is always that, depends. Obviously, you can.
Yeah, of course.
Some people to lose weight, they need more than 72 days. It depends. Obviously, how much
of
weight
course.
they might want to lose.
My point is more is like, it's what I often say with Clutter too, it's a journey. It's not an event. And it's the same what you're saying, right? And we're becoming more aware of it. And like you said, we need a goal and we need to be specific. We can't just say, oh, I want to lose some weight. No, okay, how are you going to actually do it? All these things, I think. But what I do also believe is that more and more people have heard this message and have heard about it. And it still needs hard work, right? Especially in the beginning. It's like, what did somebody say that the other day? I heard about a flywheel. In the beginning, you can hardly turn it. It takes so much effort. But the longer you do it, and that's the beautiful thing about these habits, the more you do it, the easier it gets. And then all of a sudden, this is just humming, and you're just doing the right things without even thinking. Like you're brushing the teeth, absolutely. You're eating healthy, yeah. And I really think it's important that people hear that yes, in the beginning it might be very tedious and hard, but it does get easier. Now, since we're going towards this holiday season, do you have any tips, maybe how people can become more aware and catch themselves? Because it's becoming like we're even more, if we're surrounded all year long by unhealthy food, now it's gonna be it's gonna multiply. So it's gonna get even harder with the so-called attacks from the outside, with all that, oh, you could eat some cake or you could eat some candy or this and that.
Yeah, so great question. So first of all, one thing I always recommend is to start now. I have a lot of people who say, oh yeah, but now I don't want to bother. I'd rather do it in January, right after all this. So I recommend actually to start working on your goal now, because if you start in January, you work in the let's call it perfect condition, and obviously it depends, but in January kind of nothing happens, right? And so you will do it easy, and then when something happens, immediately you will fall off the wagon. But if you start now already implementing healthy habits, and certain things around, and I will go into that just in a moment, then you're already ready for January and can obviously then build on this one. So that's one thing. I'm not
Can I
huge
say
on
something real quick
resolutions.
about that? I
Yeah, of
feel
course.
that is also a mindset shift that we have to do. We're always trying, I start next Monday, or I start January 1st, or I start, instead of, no, if it's important, we can start right away. It doesn't have to be the perfect moment to start either. It's like another perfectionistic thought that it has to be the perfect, and we can start right now. And I think it comes also from, because now I have all these temptations, so I want to start January 1st, so it's easier. No, you want to actually have all the hard things now.
Exactly. So that's exactly. So so for me, the biggest thing is, especially during that time, is really around planning. So one, I mean, it depends. I'm assuming here, but I'm going with what I learned from most of my clients and also from myself, right? There are gonna be parties, events, or whatever during the festive season where you want to enjoy. You don't want to eat your cabbage, right? Only, or whatever it is, right? You do want to eat the Christmas turkey, or doesn't matter what it is. So that's important. So don't beat yourself up and try only like to eat, the carrots and not anything fun or so. A balance is important, but the biggest thing here, what I would recommend, is to plan ahead and to plan, or have a plan B rather, right? Because things are gonna go pear-shaped, right? And not as you plan them. So so there are two things. So for yourself, obviously plan your meals in a way. Let's say you have a Christmas party at home, or Thanksgiving, or whatever it is, right? So you have it at home, you can obviously plan some healthy dishes in there. If, on the other hand, you're invited somewhere, call ahead and ask what food is there, what food options are there. So you can then, let's say there's only really unhealthy stuff, right? For whatever reason, you can either ask, if you know the host well enough, look, do you mind maybe having a healthy, side dish, a little bit of vegetable, or, whatever it is, maybe a salad or something. Or you can just offer that you bring something, right? And obviously you make this. So you have some options. The same when you go to a restaurant or so, try to choose a restaurant that is sort of healthy-ish, or where there's some healthy options, and always look at the menu before. You always want to know what's there before, because you want to write down what you're going to order or what you're going to eat. And that's why I say planning. So you write it down. When you write it down, you are more likely to stick to it. Ideally share it even maybe with your partner or somebody. So you want really to be as prepared if you go on, somewhere away or so for the trip. Plan your trip, right? If you go to the airport, or if car travel or whatever, have obviously some healthy options with you. You want to have a healthy option, because when you don't have, obviously you go to the unhealthy, right? But if there's a healthy thing, you're a little bit more likely to eat the healthy thing. So that's the one thing. The other thing, always start with something healthy. So have the soup first, the salad, the whatever dish, and then have maybe the main course where you say, okay, I have a piece of protein with, some vegetable, and maybe, a side of something a little bit unhealthier, like, I don't know, whatever it is, right? A little bit of bread or whatever it is. And have a little bit of dessert if you decide to have that, but then have only a small piece, right? Or a small spoon or a small plate. Make clear, you tell your hosts that you want to eat healthy, and that when you say you only want one piece, they should not give you a big piece or whatever it is. So it's all kind of writing it down and getting clear, and have some balance. So say yourself, okay, like there's a buffet, I have one plate and I have a helping of each. So I can taste everything because they're nice things, but then have just one plate. And have a small plate, by the way. It's also a little trick. And don't go for seconds, right? So these are things that I would recommend.
Yeah, thank you. That's very helpful. I think it still needs a lot of planning and being intentional, right? But it's very helpful when you can actually plan ahead and yeah, like you said, maybe tell your partner what you do, get accountability, right? That's often where we as coaches come into. When you have accountability, you're more likely to actually stick to your plan too, because I find it sometimes is really hard. So with eating too is like the way I grew up. That's another thing, how we get conditioned. Oh no, eat a little bit more. You can do your diet in January or whatever. Like the people are sometimes not in a mean way, but not very helpful, right? They try to trip you over.
No, like you said, at home you were told, like, we do things through the right way. It's the same,
Yeah,
like, we were told, you need to finish your plate, right?
yeah.
Why do I need to finish the plate? Because I'm in a restaurant, and for example, in the US, for the portion size in restaurants
Yeah.
has increased by 40% in the last 10 years. Now, they're huge portions because they obviously bump up the price, right? I don't need to eat the whole portion, right? Because my grandmother said you have to finish the plate, right? I can ask for half of it being put in a takeaway container before it gets to the table, right? So I can take it home and I have it the next day.
Yeah. All good tips. All good tips. I want to be a bit mindful about the time. I wanted to ask you, was there anything that I didn't ask yet that you really think needs to be said still in this conversation? Like any topic that we haven't touched on yet?
I think we touched a lot on, and I think they are all really, really great tools for the folks here. What I would say is just, it's very important. I mean, there are three. I mean, I have my food freedom formula, and I will share also a really great way where you can start with. But the thing is that it comes down really to the root cause, knowing what is the root cause of our issues, right? That can be physical, that can be emotional, the mindset, or whatever, right? And obviously addressing that one. The habit implementation is super important. I work a lot on with my clients on that. And then the mindset, right? So really finding out what is holding you back. And you might feel, oh, you're not worthy, you will never get there, or whatever, because all this are those mindset blockages we've been conditioned. I just want to say to everybody, you are worth it, and you can achieve no matter what the goal is. You might need some help, right? You might start with some of the tips we shared today, but you definitely are able to get there.
Yeah, beautiful message. And yeah, tell us a little bit about your food freedom formula. I think people heard that now. Where can they find that?
Okay, so I have actually the food freedom formula is my whole system, right? As I mentioned, it runs you through all, and that's really to achieve food freedom. But I made it very easy for folks, and if anybody is interested here, you can have it, to have my food freedom foundation. And I have a workshop that I put together, and in it I go actually deeper into how to implement those healthy habits I shared earlier. So I go a little bit deeper and give you really the script and various ideas how you can implement it. And then in it as well, I work on how to change from this negative to a positive belief, right? This, I'm not lovable, I'm not worthy, I will never get there. I either have to do it perfect or not at all. The self-sabotage, the procrastination. So I share really great tips on how to change that mindset. And then in my workshop, I actually talk more about my food freedom formula. So those 5 steps and how you can implement them into your life. So if you're interested, I'm sure in the show notes, you will share the link there.
Yeah, I can share the link there. Yeah, definitely.
And of course, people can always contact me. My website is wellnessmethods.com. And also most of my handle is Wellness Methods in Facebook and Instagram and so on, or Andrea Caprio. I mean, normally when you type one or the other one, you will find me. I'm pretty much out there. And I'm always happy, in my DMs, you can ask me a question or just send me an email or something like that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I will put all the links, also the social handles, in the show notes, so people can, right where they listen to this episode, they can click on a link and they get to all the information. I always offer that. It was so lovely, Andrea, to have you on a podcast and to chit chat with you. I think this is a longer topic. Obviously, we're not solving the emotional eating problem in a 45-minute conversation, but you gave some really good, practical, actionable tips that people can start doing right now, people, right now, not tomorrow, not January 1st. You start today. It's nothing is stopping you. So, Andrea, do you have any last words? I always say last words of wisdom or something, anything before we wrap up completely.
You mentioned it already, to start right now. I mean, I always say talk is cheap and listening is even cheaper, right?
Yes.
Because, you guys out there, you are probably listening, to other podcasts. You're listening to amazing podcast episodes from Conny. And, the only thing what you can do is take one thing away that you learned today. It might be, implementing this simple, tiny habit, right? With a trigger, with a new habit and the celebration or the planning or, whatever you took away, but immediately start implementing it like Conny.
Mhm.
So, now when we stop here, immediately write it down and put it in your calendar or, whatever it is, but do it and start like, with a small little thing and then build on it and get some accountability. And you get those obviously, through somebody like with working with Conny or with myself, or maybe a partner or friend can give you the accountability as well. So you can build on those new habits.
Yeah, it was a pleasure, Andrea, to have you on a podcast. Thank you so much.
All my pleasure. Thank you, Conny, and thanks everybody for listening.
Hey, I'm Conny, your host, and I wanted to thank you for listening to the podcast today. Did you know you can bring your chaos to me? If you struggle with chaos in your office, on your desk, in your files and finances, use the link in the show notes and sign up for a complimentary 30 minutes Chaos to Peace Jumpstart call